Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Friday edition of the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you on this fine evening. Hope you guys are doing great out there, and thank you so much for being a part of the shows and continuing to show your support and to spread the word about the shows. We really appreciate it. Make sure you check out the podcast. It's available on Pandora, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, there's Chatbox. There's so many of them out there. So check it out. We just released an episode today of an interview that I got to do with a gentleman by the name of Cade Moya from Australia, who has a podcast of his own down there called Believe. It was really a great show, and we had a great time talking, and I'd love it if you guys checked it out. He's a really good guy, and check out his podcast as well. But if you have an episode of your own or a paranormal occurrence that happened to you and you'd like to share it to us on the show, please email us at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. And tonight, guys, I got a really cool show lined up for you. This is our guest tonight is someone that's I've been working with them for a long time. We haven't had much of a chance to talk though because we got very different schedules on our shows and stuff. But I'm bringing you tonight fellow TFR host Ra Castaldo, who is the host of Eye of Ra on TFRLive.com, and he is joining us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, you won't believe the experiences he's had and the amount of spiritualism and paranormal that has really shaped and surrounded his life. But Ra, welcome to the show, brother.
What's up, Brent?
Oh man, I'm thrilled you're here.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here, man. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I knew eventually we would link up, and got to have you on my show sometime too. And it's going to be really exciting to see what we go into tonight and what turns up, because I could go down so many different directions, Brent. Like you said, I've been around the paranormal, but to me, it's not paranormal. In my family, from my background at least, it's a normal condition of life. To be surrounded by the spiritual realms, and what people would call psychic or paranormal is actually just normal conditions of humans that we believe in. That's just part of who we are. So to us, it's a reality. So most people that are out there trying to research the supernatural or ghost hunting or doing any of those sort of topics, they're trying to just find proof or just prove that it's a reality. To us, it is reality. It's our belief. It is true history. It's true existence. There's no question if it's real or not. It's part of who we are. It's a normal condition of our planet, and what we're facing is far more intricate and intense than just mere spirits walking the planet. It goes way deeper than that. So maybe tonight we can uncover some deep, interesting things that maybe some of your listeners never even heard before, so they can do some of their own research.
Excellent, brother. That sounds great. And, I can already tell just from your opening statements, this is going to be an incredible show, because I've already got I'm just sitting here chomping at the bit going, ooh, we should talk about this. We should talk about this. But why don't you just take a moment and give our listeners a little bit of your background so they understand, where it is you do come from and how this journey all started for you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Brent. And we could always do other shows too. We don't have to always try to cram everything in. We could do
sure.
a series of shows, definitely.
Absolutely.
My family line is of Italian heritage. And like all over the planet, there are shamanistic cultures in every country. And my family DNA basically goes back to ancient Italy, pre-Roman, to the Etruscans.
Ooh.
And what is modern day now Tuscany is where my family once came from. And in fact, I have family that's all the way from Sicily all the way up to Tuscany, scattered throughout between my mom's line and my dad's line. But I'm 100% Italian. And all of my family lines are rooted in spiritual and what people would call shamanistic culture or some sort of shamanistic culture. My family line has been called the Benedante or the Strega, which basically means like the good walkers. And we basically use our psychic ability, our spiritual energy to try to cleanse the collective consciousness of our communities, our families, and the surrounding atmosphere. Because we're basically trying to. We believe that we're trying to complete and align the duality that's been out of whack on our planet, if you want to say that. We're here trying to pick up the pieces, sort
Mm-hmm.
of like a cosmic fallout, if you want to put it to biblical terms, Brent. That when Adam fell from the higher spiritual dimension and his consciousness collapsed, we are the fragments of that man, and we collapse to this realm of matter, and we're trapped in this vessel, and we're trying to align the positive and negative currents, the male, female, whatever you want to call it, light, dark. We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to align that duality again, so we can go to a higher dimension and leave this vessel of matter we're trapped in.
Wow, that's excellent, and that's an incredible lineage, brother. I mean, that's rare to have
Well,
such a
yeah,
pure
we're basically dream seers and psychics, and it doesn't always get passed down within the heritage, but when it does get passed down, it's stronger and stronger. Which each line it gets passed down, each time it gets passed, it gets stronger and stronger, because you're basically building your ancestral forces. Each incarnation applies more knowledge and more yeah, more intense energies. You accumulate, so you're basically getting stronger and stronger, which each time it's passed down. And I happened to go through a near death experience as a child. I feel I was the one chosen within my family line in this generation, um, to carry on this. And my some of my family lineages, and I'm even a reverend in my family's tradition.
Oh,
And
cool.
we're the base. One of our bases is out of Salem, Massachusetts. Um, One of my family members, Lori Bruno, she's actually going to be 80 years old now. She's a world-renowned psychic. She's an ancestor of Giordano Bruno, and we have our own ministry, actually, and of a shamanic ministry. So I'm actually a minister and a reverend of that association, and if you want to call it a shamanic tradition. So I can marriage people to these rites, give people their last rites. I do psychic readings on people. I could do cleansings of houses that have been possessed. I've done exorcisms on people.
Mm-hmm.
So I've dealt with the supernatural and paranormal since I'm very little. And I had a near death experience in 1987. I was about 10 years old
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and I think that's what awakened, and basically what they would call in shamanism your shamanic initiation,
Mm-hmm.
where you're basically taken by the spirits, or into another realm where you're facing the brink of death. And if you come back with your sanity, and you've come back alive, and you live, you come back with more information, and you come back with like you were rearranged. And
Mm-hmm.
it's now that's your journey, and you whatever side you get polarized to, depending on the choices you make in life, can go down some pretty interesting routes. So it's up to people to make the right life choices with the information they receive, and release it with healing energy. Because a lot of the things that you see on this planet, Brent, like schizophrenia, transgenderism, all of this, I feel that these people are most likely psychic, and they're accumulating psychic energy,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not releasing it in a healing or spiritual matter to others, and it accumulates, it bottles up inside them, and it makes their personality split, and it'll turn into schizophrenia, and it'll turn into mental illness. So we have a lot of conditions on this planet that people just cast off as paranormal or supernatural, when a lot of it are thought forms
Mm-hmm.
that we manifest within our consciousness and within the other realms of our existence, the other layers of our reality. So part of my lineage as a Benedante is to cleanse these thought forms of the collective communities and our families and friends, to try to battle these entities and these spiritual forces. And I've had dark shadow entities or dark forces chasing me since I was a little. They try to extinguish your light,
Mm-hmm.
and try to lure you to the dark. And I could share a little bit with you right now if you want,
Sure,
because
please.
I was born basically, Brent,
Mm-hmm.
in my lineage, what they call the Benedante, and you could find it all on the mysticalspiral.com is my website, and patreon.com/the mystical spiral. I was born with the call around me. It's like basically the sac that's in the
Mm-hmm.
womb.
Yeah.
I still had the call born around me, and the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. It took like almost 17, 18 hours to deliver me.
Wow.
In ancient Italian shamanism or lore, if you want to say history. They believe that when children are born with the call wrapped around them as well. It's spelled Caul like that, like the
Okay.
call. It's like a sac that's
Okay.
in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
That this is going. This is means that you're going to be a seer or some sort of prophet or
Right.
some sort of shaman. Um, so this is how I was born. So people in my family saw right away that I was born of the blood, of the fata, they call it. And when you're born that way, you have certain things that get attracted to you in your life, both good and bad, and try to lure you through certain ways. When I was 5 years old, I was experiencing um, what my mom and everybody thought were, I guess, just imaginary friends.
Mm.
And I wasn't scared of them at all, but they were not they were the size of me, but they were not like I never saw features. I just saw would like it would be like a black static, almost like black,
Oh.
almost like a black shadow, and I would always see them out of the corner of my eye. I would be playing GI Joes with them, playing all sorts of things with them, talking to them, making me
Wow.
laugh. Right.
Yep.
So, coincidentally enough, every time I would play with them, the next morning I would wake up with a serious ear infection,
Mm.
like a really bad earache, and I would always like I would go to school. I was just starting school at like 5, 6 years old, just starting school. And I
Mm.
remember I was either in kindergarten or first year's first grade. I'm not sure exactly whether it was kindergarten or first grade, but I remember always going to the school nurse and they would have to call my mom. My mom would have to bring me to the doctor. Doctor started threatening I was going to get tubes in my ears, so I stopped telling my mom I was getting these earaches. But what was happening, and now I've had I'm 41 now, so I've had all these years to analyze this and research and think about it, and
Mm.
more things have come to me. I've had other experiences, so um, basically, what was happening is I was feeling like a buzz in the electricity in the house. I was feeling something behind the walls, Brent. And
Mm.
we didn't have computers or anything like that back then. So I was feeling it in the TV. It was
Mm.
ringing in my ears. Like I would feel a ringing in my ears and a ringing in the wires in the house, the electricity. They were they were somehow connected to the electricity. I even knew that as a kid. And I would go to the TV, I would go to the walls, I would feel them coming. And then I would be playing with them, talking to them and I would get these ear infections and earaches, and I knew the only way to let this earache actually go away was to go downstairs and wait for them, and I somehow knew this,
Mm.
and I never was scared of it, like I said, but then one day, and I've shared this with some other people, and other people have had similar experiences, which is pretty frightening because I never thought anybody else have it. Actually, one girl that I've interviewed, I've talked to her a few times, Amy Allen. I think she has a show on TV called
Yeah.
Dead Files or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah. She
right?
does. Yep.
So she's had similar experiences as me, and we've talked about this. Um, so one day, they actually appeared to me face on, and this was the last time I ever saw them, and my mom kind of chased them away too, I think, in a way, or willed them away as well, or maybe the gig was up because I think they built my trust for a few months because I was plagued with these earaches and ear infections for several months. I'm not sure if they tried to give me uh penicillin for my earaches back then, but somewhere along the line at that same age, I was allergic to penicillin, and I had a bad reaction to penicillin as well.
Wow.
It was during that same time. So it was like a few months that I was getting these earaches. They were playing all of this, and then finally one day, um, I went to the back of the TV and they appeared to me right there, and I literally saw like a someone my size, and they were blinking in and out of existence like a black static, like
Mm-hmm.
almost. That's the best way I could describe it now.
Sure.
And the wires behind the TV were like sort of lifting up off the air, and I felt like they were glowing, like they were magic, like they were a magic wand.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, "Bite these, and you could come with us forever.
Oh
If you
gosh.
bite these wires,
Oh
and
no.
you can play with us forever. You can be with us forever," something like that. And immediately the fight or flight kicked in, and I got so scared I took off to my mother.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt drawn to it at first. But then when I looked in the eyes of a basically a static, soulless black formation,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the fear came over me. Everything on my body was so scared. I ran to my mother. I was wrapped around her legs. I was telling her what was happening. She was screaming at me, never to talk about it again,
Mm-hmm.
freaking out, like literally like throwing me around the kitchen. I was scared. I was scared so much that I never, even thought about it for a little while, and I
Mm-hmm.
put it out of my memory for a little while. And then I remember meeting another kid in school, Jason. This kid, Jason Rothman, I think his name was, and he had a huge scar going down his lip. I met him in like sixth grade or seventh grade years later. And I remember asking him one day why he had a lisp and why he had that scar. And he told me that he bit the wires at
Oh.
his house, the electrical wires. And everything came flooding back to me, and I remembered. And then from that time on, in like sixth grade, I was that was also around the same time where right after I had my near death experience as well, I was having a lot of more paranormal experiences coming up. It was like a remembrance, and things were coming back. And for a while, there's a lot of interesting things that can happen because I had my near death experience at in 1987,
Mm-hmm.
and when that happened, what I remember is what I think what we call in my tradition are the Grigori. They're like these interdimensional watchers. Some people call them fallen angels in Christianity. In the Kabbalah, they call them archangels.
Mm-hmm.
They are like beings of light. And I think when you're in spirit form, you can interact with these other entities out there. And there's all sorts of different layers of our reality. Even if some people don't believe it out there, that's just because they haven't experienced it yet. Once you experience it, it's not a fact if it's real or not. And I know most people have to believe that there's something else out there if they're listening to a show like this. In my heritage, they believe everything in nature, everything. Everything and even inanimate objects all contain an energy, both a duality, a both positive and negative duality.
Mm-hmm.
And there are spirits and different energy that's attached to every object and everything in the universe. So anything you come into connection out there can generate some sort of activity or some sort of spiritual activity. So um, some of these experiences, I know they sound, bizarre to some people, but I think that everybody has their own spiritual path to choose. And, once you start working from your heart center and your ego is smashed, you'll start to open up. And, once you crack the doorway open on top of your head and you see, and you can see through your heart as well and work through your heart center, you start to have certain experiences like this. And people out there's certain bloodlines out there that are trying to extinguish lineages like mine and people like
Mm-hmm.
myself. And everybody out there listening to this, everybody out there that has a soul, that has the divine spark, has ancient DNA within them that can be activated, and your true abilities can emerge. We are all healers. We are all shaman. We are all prophets. It's up to you to open up that energy within yourself. So I don't want to try to come across like, make it me having these experiences makes me any different than anybody else. But I do feel I have been chosen in a way to help inspire this energy and this knowledge in other people, and that's part of my mission.
Mm-hmm.
When I had my near death experience, Sprint, I literally remember these four beings of light. Uh, and they were all around me, like the north, the south, the east, the west, at all corners, and I was in a cylinder. And let me remind, they were operating me to save my life on the operating table. What had happened is I've been doing kickboxing and soccer most of my life. I haven't done it in a few years now, of course, but I'm in my
Sure.
40s now. But
Right.
growing up, my first 25 years of my life, it was big time into kickboxing and soccer. So I had gotten a ruptured testicle where a black tissue formed in my testicle, and I didn't go to the hospital. I just let it be, and I thought it would heal. And then the next morning, I woke up. I tried to go to school, and I blacked out. And what had happened is there was a black tissue forming in my testicle and was cutting the blood flow or oxygen going to my body. I was gonna die if they didn't open me up and pull this black tissue out.
Oh man.
So
Wow.
I was on the operating table, and when I came to, I remembered, a lot of things. And what I remember is that I was being held in this cylinder and I had all of these beings around me, and I heard information coming over me like, and I felt like I was in water, although I don't remember being wet,
Mm-hmm.
or feeling wet. I felt like I was in water, almost like I was in the crucifixion pose, like, my upright.
Mm-hmm.
And coincidentally enough, too, I was in spread eagle on the operation table too at the same time, and they're operating on my testicle, so
Oh,
my
sure.
legs are open on the operation table, and I had my arms out in IV in the same position. I remember being upright, standing like in water, like, and my arms and legs out, almost like in crucifixion pose. And I remember all these beings of light around me. They were robed, but just light inside the robes. I think the robes were trying to make me feel like they were almost like human form or something. Or
Oh.
maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I was in that pose, and almost like I was in a carpenter's level, Brent.
Uh-huh.
I was like the bubble inside the carpenter's level. You know that bubble you have to
Yeah.
level out.
Sure.
So I had to level myself out in this cylinder to wake up. And when I finally leveled myself out, I woke up on the operating table. It was like I was in the cylinder of water, and I was the bubble, and I had to like level myself out in it. And when I finally did, I remember opening my eyes and being up on the operating table, and
Oh.
I woke up. And so I feel like I was getting taken particle by particle and being put back together again. Because
Wow.
after that, I was years later, I realized what was happening. I was seeing people's auric fields. I was I had a hypersensitivity to everything. The way I was hearing music was different.
Mm-hmm.
I was seeing people's timelines. When I would talk to them, I would see their auric energy. And we have like you know what a torus is? That donut shaped.
Mm-hmm.
We have like a nest of these toruses. That's what our aura is built out. It's like a biofield.
Okay.
And I was seeing like a field of this around people sometimes when I was connected to them, and I had a strong emotion for them, like my mother or people like that. I was seeing this like a umbrella of energy come over people, and I was experiencing things like my mom would drive me to school. I would be stopping her, saying there was people walking in the middle of the road, and there was nobody there. She would be like, "What the hell's the matter with you? Hitting me in the head?" And she's old school Italian, so you know so I stopped talking and I ran from it for a while. And for a lot of my teenage years, I did drugs. I went down the wrong route,
Mm-hmm.
and I numbed it for a while, and I didn't want to talk about it, but it was coming out in other ways. And finally I was tired of everything, and in my early 20s, I decided to take like kickboxing camp and cleanse my body and do ayahuasca in
Mm-hmm.
Peru and Brazil. So I haven't done any hard drugs. I haven't done anything but smoke weed since then. So it's 20 years removed from my life, that hardcore drug style. But for a while, I was trying to get rid of this energies that was around me. That same year, I had a near death experience. While we go to the break, and then we could go into other interesting things, because I have so many paranormal stories from
Oh.
Italy that I've accumulated over the years, and things that I've researched. I'm writing a book on certain things.
Oh,
I'm
good.
a creator. I'm an author,
Mm-hmm.
a musician. So I'm doing a comic book. I have my own Patreon. So it's all out there. But if you want to ask me any questions to the end, you want me to share another, um, you know,
Well,
paranormal story, it's up to you.
now I'm curious. In the 2 minutes remaining, did you have you had perfect clarity during this near death experience, or just being in
No,
the tube was it?
no, I remember probably, they were operating on me for 2 or 3 hours or so. But
Oh,
I
okay.
remember like a 30-second minute clip where
Okay.
I felt like it almost was like I was on the moon, or somewhere where there was like no gravity, but like in this cylinder. That's what I felt
Wow.
like. Like I was escorted somewhere by these four beings. That's what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And they were watching over me or something.
Right.
And I was in this cylinder, and I remember fragments of me trying to level myself out like in a carpenter's level. And then I remember finally leveling it out and awakening. So it was like it's like blinking recollections is the best way I could describe it. Not
Wow.
complete clarity, but I have blinking recollections of it. And most people would call that a near death experience, or they would say, in my background, they would say that was your shamanistic initiation. That my near death experience, that was supposed to happen. It was like something that part of my life mission, and I was taken by the spirits, if you want to say, in a way, and I was given ancient knowledge and given my journey, and chose my path. You know,
Gotcha.
because when I was 20 years old, a little over 20, it was in how old? I was in my early 20s in 2002. This is when, in my lineage, they call it your calling, your Benindante calling.
Sure.
I heard the beat of a tribal drum beat within my consciousness, within my heart. And I literally got on a bus out of nowhere in New York and took a bus all the way to Long Beach, California. And I went through a 2 week, I ended up staying out there 2 years,
Oh,
but
nice.
I went through a couple week period of the most supernatural experiences you could possibly imagine. And we could talk about that when we get back from break.
Excellent, brother. You see, he's a pro, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even have to do anything. He even knows when the breaks are coming. This is great. This is wonderful, though, brother. You're doing a great job. I'm absolutely enthralled too. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes here. Time to pay the bills, but don't go away for more of Ra Castaldo and the Paranormal Portal. We'll be right back.
Spiral out.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second half hour of our show tonight of a 2-hour extravaganza, which occurs every Friday here on TFR. But I hope you guys are having a great night, and welcome to your weekend. Yeah, see. Hope you guys are doing great, and thank you so much for joining us. But tonight's special guest is our own TFR's own Mr. Ra Castaldo, who is the host of Eye of Ra on TFR. And he's also got a website. It's mysticspiral.com. Is that right?
TheMysticalSpiral.com.
TheMysticalSpiral.com. All right. Sorry about that. But welcome back, brother. And thank you so much for being here. And by the way, you're doing great. I mean, seriously, this is your time to share, everything you can with our listeners and me. And I love listening. So, man, just keep rolling. You're doing great.
Yeah, I hope I wasn't going too fast. And I try to give my information in a way to inspire people.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's a reason behind everything in life. I believe there's spiritual omens, good and bad, around you at all times, talking to you. And that's what we believe in my bloodline, in my ancestry, and that's what I believe in. And all around us, whether it's in the flight of birds or the way the clouds move, or the voice of the wind, or whatever you want to call the spiritual energy around you, there's signs all around you talking to you throughout the day, and it's up to you to listen to these signs. And when you start to listen to the signs, you see the multi-dimensional existence that we have around us, and what's truly around us. And like I said, I do feel that there's certain dark forces on our planet that try to eliminate our connection to our spiritual side. They want us trapped in these vessels that we have, these bodies that we're in. They do not want us extending to a higher realm. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm trying to bring the teacher back, and I'm showing people some of my shamanistic techniques and some of my hereditary knowledge, because it's true, Brent. If you look at it, the whole role of the teacher is pretty much leaving our society. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way we learn nowadays and the way we apply and is we're just accumulating knowledge off the internet, or we're accumulating knowledge off a machine, or something is teaching us that way. The way we receive information and the way we apply it is very important. Yeah. The way the world's going, there's going to be no more teachers eventually. People are only interested in learning. They're not interested in teaching. So when you have a teacher, the interaction between student and teacher, and the teacher teaches you how to apply that information appropriately and that knowledge appropriately, and it talks to you about the trials and errors he's had, and all of these things. It's like for life to exist in a system that is successful, you have to have like that Ouroboros symbol, that circulatory system where different components are interacting with each other, and they're interacting and successfully and communicating and interacting successfully. So when you have that teacher giving to student giving to teacher, that's the sort of circulatory system that we need to appropriately learn things. And the way we're learning now, it's going to be only machines that we're interacting with, and an AI that we're interacting with. And I do feel it's coming over us and bringing a whole different layer of who we are. And it's going to bring us to a singularity eventually if we don't learn about our spiritual sides.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree, and I think you're right. I think that it seems to me that the inclusion of the internet has just steamrolled so much of what we once knew about our lives and our heritage and our culture, and it's become this other phenomena, if you will, and it's also caused so many things, and like a digression of decency and humility, and I like to say, and forgive the language, but I like to say that it's caused people to, in a lot of ways, become socially inept. And if just look at any chat room anywhere except for this chat channel, because our YouTube channel is just top notch. It's just incredible, and the TFR chat room is really incredible too. But a lot of places out there, you go there and there's always some idiot, just acting a fool and saying things. But I think it's because there's no ass kicking clause, and forgive the language, but it's like the things that people would do on the internet, they would never do in person, because but there's no deterrent. They can be idiots and they can get away with it, and it just shows that the untethered mind is reckless and in a state of chaos, I guess is what I'm saying. And so I think we've lost a lot of our discipline through the advent of this. But I think that it also has to do with the fact that the technology is, in the grand scheme of things, this technology is incredibly new, and we just haven't learned how to adapt it and find balance with it in our world. So it's become this amazing convenience, and everybody's all in on it, and we've forgotten how to find our equilibrium with it. And we will, I hope, figure out where that is. But you're right. I think people are just, mindless drones in a lot of cases.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother show because I have a whole theory and topic I've been discussing about certain psychic information I've been receiving about us, getting basically taken over by another layer of who we are as being added, an artificial layer. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole nother way we can go down another show sometimes if you want it,
Sure.
because that's a whole nother topic. But I've been talking about it, and there's even a spot on the back of our head that in ancient Hebrew they even believe that we can be cloned from on the top of our spine in the back of our neck called the Lutz bone. And I on my Patreon I've been doing a lot of information about this. Basically a lot of cultures and a lot of shamanistic cultures, mysticism, ancient knowledge, and Masonic groups, they believe that there's a spot in our body that doesn't deteriorate, that stays in the grave with the bones. It's the shape of an almond. That's why they call it the Lutz, Luz. It means almond tree or almond. And there's a spot on the back of our spine, the top of our spine, the back of our head, where this little almond shaped bone contains the knowledge of our life. And it can be imprinted and it can be replicated and uploaded into a machine, even, but it can't replicate that divine spark. It can't replicate your
Sure.
soul.
Yeah.
So a lot of people believe that at the end times, when there's a resurrection from the dead, that it's going to involve this Lutz bone, and it's going to bring some sort of ancient machine, a future machine, if you want to say, a computer mind of the future is going to be replicating everybody and uploading their existence into a singularity. And it could involve this Lutz bone. So that's a whole nother topic that we could go into another time. But
Sure.
see, we were bringing it up, but when it comes down to it, we construct our own universe, and so it's up to us to bring about the interaction with people again, and spirituality. We're constructing a universe where we do not want to communicate with others anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's intense.
Right, it is. But I think I have to ask though. Now that you brought that up, and I'm just curious, how does that work with people that were cremated?
Cremated.
Yeah.
Well, I do believe that when you're cremated, when you're burned, especially like in a funeral pyre, and it's not saved in the urn or anything like that, that you leave this realm.
Okay.
When your bones are being saved, it's being saved for something.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be replicated and cloned in a way. There's certain spiritual technology that can be released that can raise the dead. I mean, it's a fact. It's happened in our past. And people can generate a certain vibrational energy that you can shock the body like an electrical shock in an emergency room. There's countless saints that have done it because they were able to generate a vibrational energy between countless people that are devoted to them, that they've consecrated, that they've baptized, and they
Mm-hmm.
generate a vibrational energy. And when they speak a certain rise or some sort of something comes out of their mouth that actually will electric shock, the body, and bring some sort of spiritual technology. I mean, when Jesus died, Rex, uh, I don't know of how much people read the Bible out there, but most of the world believes that when Jesus died, there was an earthquake that cracked the earth. There
Mm-hmm.
was trumpet sounds, and the dead rose. They saw the saints rose from the dead and showed up in the town, and they were appearing to people. And there was a resurrection of the dead, a certain spiritual technology that happened. And there's a certain force. There's, I don't know how many saints that have rose the dead, but I've researched hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
and some of them have raised the dead, dug people up from the grave and raised them from the dead. I mean, Saint Patrick was known to have raised people from the dead that were dead already buried, and he had them uncovered and he rose them from the dead because he learned this from the ancient druids. You know, he was a slave for Saint Pat. I mean, people don't realize, but people like Saint Columba, Saint Patrick, they were considered heretics. They were considered they were not worshipped at first. They
Mm-hmm.
were considered using magic, you know,
Oh.
back in the day. So, but they were using ancient spiritual technology that can raise the dead, and we're seeing some of this technology coming back again now. It's
Mm-hmm.
being rediscovered, and they're using it replicated versions of our spiritual technology, you could say.
Wow. Now that's interesting that you should say that because we just recently did some shows about the glitches in the matrix. You know, the whole idea of when reality just kind of breaks down or goes sideways or just something weird happens that defies all explanation. And to me, what occurred to me is that are people somehow inadvertently hitting those spiritual triggers and making these things happen, but they don't understand the dynamics of it, and is that it's funny because you're actually saying a lot of the same things that I said just a few shows ago when I was talking about these things, and I referenced Jesus to performing miracles and how perhaps it's just him knowing how to shift that reality, create a shift in the matrix, so to speak, and how that would be divine knowledge and so perhaps some of these people experiencing these oddities are actually triggering these events but aren't sure. They made it mostly subconsciously, but you know what I mean? Does that sound possible?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you could go into the Bible right now, if you guys don't believe me, I mean, it's in Matthew, I think 27. It talks about when the Lord died, the earth quaked, the temple curtain and the rocks were rent. You know, that's what they talk about. And the bodies of the saints
Mm-hmm.
uh, that were sleeping, they arose and they were coming out of their tombs after his resurrection, and they came into the holy city and they appeared to many people. You know, and it's after this there was many saints and apostles that were using that same spiritual technology to
Mm-hmm.
raise the dead. I mean, even more recent saints, even their relics are still raising the dead. Some of them are being used. See, Roman Catholicism is ancient Egyptian uh, cult of the dead. It's the same sorcery, ancient magic that's been used for thousands of years. The same magic that some of my Etruscan relatives have encountered. Some of the Malandante forces. We're the good walkers, the Benedante, but there's the other side called the Malandante, who use certain spiritual technologies to corrupt the minds of people to steal from the abundance of nature to get certain powers
Mm-hmm.
and to manipulate the elements to get their way. And these are the dark forces on our planet that we are battling against, true spiritual battles against every day, all of us. It's the negative chatter that you get in your head. This is where the dark forces come from. And you know there's all sorts of things that were created by resurrecting people from the dead, that now people are cleaning up through exorcisms. And you know, Saint Benedict was one of them that did this. Saint Benedict was a born shamanism, and he's the main uh, priest, or or whatever you want to call him, saint, that people use in exorcisms to this day. Catholic priests, they use Saint Benedict for
Mm-hmm.
exorcisms, you know. But when he was born, his whole life he was a shaman. He was communicating with ravens. They were bringing him messages. He was having ravens come to him. You know, this one other priest that was jealous from him from another town was trying to poison him, and gave him like a poison loaf of bread, you know, as a gift, not knowing it was poison. But Saint Benedict psychically knew, and he had the ravens take it away. And then Saint Benedict thought that he should leave the area because it was bringing harmful energy towards his monastery and his monks. So he didn't want his monks involved in any of this bad energy coming. So he left. So this guy and this other priest that was trying to kill him, I think his name was Florentinus or something, in a town near. He thought he won because he chased Saint Benedict away. But Saint Benedict left, and then immediately this guy Florentinus was struck dead through the spiritual power of Saint Benedict. And then
Mm-hmm.
Saint Benedict went to Monte Cassino, this holy mountain where the temple of Apollo was and the temple of Jupiter was, and he consecrated that spot and released and put his monastery on top of a pagan temple, and he released a lot of evil at that point. He used his powers to kill somebody, and then he conquered a pagan temple and made it the saint an altar for the Saint John of the Baptist, and he made it an altar for his monastery. And so he killed somebody from his spiritual energy, and then basically conquered a pagan temple and made it a Catholic monastery. And then he basically uh, had thousands and thousands of followers and monks after this, and all these monasteries that he made. And this is the common. And
Mm-hmm.
Saint Benedict raised many people from the dead. This is common. This is they use this spiritual technology to baptize people to their faith. So people devote their souls to their faith. And then when somebody witnesses a miracle like that, you have their unshakable belief, and for countless generations will be devoted to that belief system, and they're baptized to the faith. And then when you generate that sort of vibrational energy and that kind of following, you generate enough spiritual energy to raise the dead. And Saint Benedict has done this many occasions while he was alive, and even after the dead. Some of his relics and other saints' relics have done this. And him and his sister, he had a twin sister, Saint Scholastica. Saint Scholastica also was able to control the weather, they say. So
Mm.
they were like born mystics,
Sure.
you know.
Wow.
It's crazy stuff when you get into it, with these saints. They were shamans, and there's a lot of exorcisms that are being done today that are basically like disembodied spirits of an ancient evil that once walked our planet. You could call them giants, you could call them Rephaim or Nephilim, but past races that once existed on our planet are what you guys thinks is ghosts today. They are what disembodied spirits are. They are
Mm-hmm.
plaguing the minds of man, and they exist on our. They're still connected to our physical realm because some of them were, sir, literally earthborn. There was earthborn giants and earthborn Rephaim that I believe and I've seen that are attacked and attached to this physical realm still and are attacking people, and that's what ghosts and spirits basically are.
Hmm. So you don't believe that that people that live, their spirits walk again along the earth? You think that it's something else? These
I
Rephaim and Nephilim.
I think their energy can be captured and trapped by these people and imprinted and replicated and used to torment their loved ones.
Mm.
And the knowledge of their life can be replicated and taken because souls move on, you know. But some of your energy can get fragmented and shatter, and can be picked up by these spiritual beings that are still connected to our realms, these disembodied spirits. And they can use it, the knowledge of your life, to torment your loved ones, to torment people that knew you, to torment the area that you frequented, and it's very intricate when you get into it, but it's there's layers to our reality. There's many different spiritual beings that exist on different layers of our reality. There's feline type beings, reptilian type beings. There's all sorts of type beings that exist, but I do think that they all, in some way, are related to the Nephilim and the Rephaim. They are all related in some way to that line, and that's how they got into this realm and how they're associated with our multidimensional reality that we're attached to. I mean, there's known sightings of these things appearing in matter in our realm, and in basically in Italy in 1977 in Sterno, Italy. Um, there was a many reports, not just a few reports, and I've actually done a psychic viewing on this, and I saw something very similar to what they were reporting. So I do believe it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Basically on in near Naples, and I saw something that wasn't reported. That this is actually attached to them visiting ancient volcanoes that were being reactivated. Because I do believe volcanoes are like stargates,
Mm-hmm.
and they're attached to Venus and other planets, and they're like sacred cauldrons of creation. They bring things into our world from other realms. And when our world is at a completion like it is now, we're at the end of a cycle and the rise of a new world. That's why there's a battle for all of this energy. The volcanoes are going to be spitting out a new world, and then bringing back some of the ancients in a new form.
Mm.
And it was starting already in the 70s. And on August 29th in 1977, Brent,
Mm-hmm.
there was 7 men from Sterno, Italy, that at least 7 that saw a spaceship, basically some sort of craft that
Mm-hmm.
was parked on the ground. But they didn't just see
a craft. They saw a giant as well, and he was like suited up, and he was a big giant like giant humanoid. He was trying to talk to them and they were trying to communicate with him. They were like spellbound and enchanted, they say, at this creature who was like trying to talk to them or referencing to them or motioning to them. And a few of the witnesses say they were put into a literal trance, and uh, they were questioned by other people, and they were hypnotized by medical hypnotists afterwards. And there was a lot of things that came up to it. Basically, they said that like uh, this like interdimensional giant, if you want to say, was spotted by two college students at first, and it was just after midnight. And a report in it, from February 21st of 1978, a newspaper report that you can get this from. And one of the people's name was I think Michel Giovanello. And according to this guy, that he was out walking, and they came to like a crossroads where there was a mule track or some sort of mule crossroads that led to like an old quarry, an abandoned quarry. And he was attracted by like a glowing light, a glowing red sparkling light that was coming from behind the trees on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And they approached it. They were cautious, and they heard these strange like noises. They described it like some sort of like science fiction film type noise. Like they heard like bleep bleep type noises and weird stuff. He said that they couldn't describe how they really felt, and that like it was about 35 feet away, and that they couldn't believe basically that this guy was like dressed in silver. It was a giant. And these are people that were going to Naples University, in their 20s, smart people, well-respected students.
Mm-hmm.
They said that he was dressed in silver, that he had some sort of belt, and his eyes were glowing like orange lights,
Wow.
like glowing,
Jeez.
and I think they were enchanted by him, and got stuck there for a while too. Like they don't even know how long they were there.
Mm. Wow. That's plenty creepy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never seen a giant in our physical realm before, but I've had dream visions of giants in suspended animation that I've talked about for years on my YouTube channel and my radio shows before.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel that they are returning in a new form, and they're coming through the artificial intelligence, and they're coming through certain ways that are taking over our planet and taking over our humanity and our DNA,
Mm.
and certain bloodlines are connected to. I think we're all in a way connected to these beings, but certain bloodlines are using some of their ancient forces and ancient knowledge
Mm.
to take away who we are, to
Oh,
give our very DNA over to this ancient race so they can live again.
right. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. But I think about stories like the Giant of Kandahar, where the U.S. forces in Afghanistan encountered apparently a giant in the caves up there. That's
Yeah.
it's
He
a
would be like a Rephaim, what we would call like a Rephaim. This
okay.
is like what King Og or Goliath is in the Bible.
Right. Okay.
And they come, they talk about King Og of Bashan, which is like modern day Lebanon. And these are, ancient beings that were a race. They weren't mutations. They talk about these six-fingered giants that have double rows of teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly this is where the red-haired, green-eyed bloodline comes from, and the blonde-haired, blue-eye bloodline actually comes from on our planet. Is from these races that were once here.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's legend of them all around the globe. It wasn't just one area that had giants; they were everywhere, and then suddenly they're nowhere. Except
Yeah.
they still pop up every once in a while. There's even claims out of North America of people witnessing giants to this day, and that's apparently they're still out there somehow. Maybe living subterraneanly or something, but you're right, they're still out there.
Yeah, well, I think we have different layers of our reality,
Mm-hmm.
and there's different levels to our existence. And I think sometimes timelines can bleed into each other, and things can come into our realm. And I think this is what's happening now. We're having a manipulation. There's a replicator technology that's interacting with our reality.
Uh,
When you send
a text message to somebody, and I know we're coming to break in a second. When you send a text message to somebody, it's a replication of your telepathic communication. It's a replication of what you're supposed to be interacting with. This is our technology that we're using now is a replication of what we're supposed to be interfaced with. So this is part of what's taking place on our planet, and part of what's taking over our existence.
Wow, very deep, brother. You're digging deep on this one, but I'm just thrilled that you came on, because this has been a ride, and we got a whole nother hour to go yet. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna hit the break here, so don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages and the second hour intro, and we'll continue on with Mr. Ra Castaldo here on the portal. Don't go away.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me, and their lies keep falling apart. But I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken I am finished with my silence. I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness. Just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise. You're just another fucking mess. Taking off the slice of my sanity. Just make sure that you're well fed. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken
I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to hour number 2 of the Paranormal Portal, and I hope you're enjoying our show. I'm seeing from the messages that you guys are definitely enjoying it, so we got that covered, and I'm thrilled to see that. And we got a lot more to come yet, but before we go any further, I just want to mention tomorrow Don and I will be at the Bigfoot conference in Spokane, and we'll be doing our best to stream as much of that as we can. Bring that to you here on the YouTube channel if you're listening on YouTube, or if you're not, head over to youtube.com/paranormal portal and check that out. We'll be, wandering around, checking things out, seeing what there is to see. And I don't think I can, broadcast the speakers. I don't think that would be fair, because I'm sure they probably have their own thing, and, they don't want they don't want somebody just streaming them for free on YouTube. But we'll definitely bring you the conference and show you what's going on there. And hope you guys will join us then. But it'll be Don and I tomorrow over in Spokane at the Bigfoot conference. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, joining us live is Mr. Ra Castaldo of the Eye of Ra, who is joining us here. He is my brother in arms over on TFR. He's got the show The Eye of Ra. It's an excellent show. The Mystical Spiral.
Buddy.
Yeah, buddy. MysticalSpiral.com is his website. And ladies and gentlemen, he hasn't mentioned it yet, but you should know he also handcrafts a lot of protection talismans and energetic talismans and stuff that are for sale as well. And Ra, how can people get a hold of those?
Yeah, thanks, Brent. I was going to mix it at the end of the night just in case it didn't come up. I make tensor tools. They're made of copper. Mm-hmm. I have crystals, amulets, all sorts of spiritual tools you can use on my website. You can go to the mysticalspiral.com/store. I also have T-shirts. But yeah, my tensor tools are custom made, and they're, copper has magical abilities, has spiritual technology abilities. Sometimes when people use the word magic, it's basically like when a technology that people can't explain, we call magic. It's a spiritual unseen technology sometimes that a force field that people can't describe in the right way. So we use the word magic, but it really is. Copper has magical properties. And it can pull pain out. It can balance your emotional stress. It could protect you from EMF, from 5G, from harmful frequencies and microwave signals. So it's really intense for people that has back pain or all sorts of emotional stress. It could help you out. So the mysticalspiral.com/store. I also do psychic readings, and I have a Patreon. So definitely check that out.
You are just all over the place, and you're a musician, and you got a comic book coming, and writing books, doing shows.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just busier than hell, brother.
Yeah, and I got a young daughter too, so it's it's a full-time job doing it all, man. I'm trying to make it all work. I chose to follow my dream because I was working like just a regular job, for a very long time. Recently, I decided to just take the risk and follow my dream because I felt like I was in a prison for like 15 years working like in a warehouse type environment. It was a big responsibility. I had 20 guys I was in charge of, but I mean, it's just it was pointless for me to waste myself and my energy that way anymore. So
Right.
although financially I took a big risk right now, I feel ultimately it's going to work,
Sure.
and everything's going to get, because it's like my life mission, and I feel the planet needs it right now. We need to get back to the old ways and get in touch with our spiritual sides again. Otherwise we're going to lose ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no doubt about that, and I'm thrilled that you're doing it. You're doing great things. People are resonating to your message. What is your YouTube channel, by the way? Because I've seen comments like, I could watch his YouTube all day. So what is your
Yeah,
YouTube channel?
exploring the Ka with Ra Castaldo. Exploring the Ka. That's Ka. Exploring the Ka. Ka is like your astral body, your Egyptian soul. So that exploring the Ka with Ra Castaldo. That's my YouTube. You can find it all on my website, themysticalspiral.com, or my Patreon, The Mystical Spiral. Also, you asked me a pretty complicated question, whether I believe in ghosts or spirits. I think it's way more intricate than just your body not moving on. I think that part of your spirit, it can get trapped in a maze until you ascend to another realm. And while it's trapped in that, it's sort of maze, in if you want to call it the afterlife, it can be hijacked by a lot of dark forces that are pacing our realms and waiting for that. And I think that's what we see. And what I've been writing a book on is certain spiritual technologies on our planet that are broadcasting the dark ones, these dark forces, these dark entities on our planet, and broadcasting a transmission of the apocalypse, a transmission of these end times, and making it come to fruition and making people at war with each other. And I do feel the Ark of the Covenant was a spiritual technology, was an ancient computer, a DNA computer of some sort, that people don't realize what's actually hidden within our past, and why we need to research these ancient topics. So if you want to talk some deep paranormal now, and go deeper into some of the ghost stories, and some of the
Absolutely.
dark spirits that have been on this planet, and some of the ones that I've come across. But first, let's talk a little bit about some of these things that I've researched before we go into a little bit my more in my personal experiences, because I think it's going to be good for your fans to probably hear this, that they've probably never heard before.
Good.
And it's something that's been passed down in my hereditary, and I think everybody would find it very interesting. So these dark ones that I've mentioned, these disembodied spirits of the giants, or the Rephaim or Nephilim, they can basically inhabit the consciousness of people, and they basically go after people of high. They could go after anybody, whether you're a poor or whatever, but a lot of times they try to focus on kings or presidents or people of high status that have weak spirits, and they try to inhabit those people, especially. And there's Emperor Nero was one of these people that inhabited these dark ones, that they were inside of him. And in Emperor Nero was basically, when he died, it's lore in my family history, in my bloodline, that the bad shaman or witches, whatever you want to call the mystics of the area, the bad and the good, got together to bury Emperor Nero's bones deep in a tomb, and they planted a walnut tree on top of it, and they sealed it with an ancient spell or mantra, that these dark ones will be forever sealed within, as long as this walnut tree stayed alive. It would be sealed within this walnut tree and forever stay there. And it was a gathering place for witches and shaman and all sorts of mystics for a long time. And there were these serpents that would appear on the tree as well, and they were calling them the serpents of Nero. And so in time, the evil that was locked in the tree, I think the tree started to wither a little bit, and the belief system of the mystics around started to dwindle, and they forgot even the reason why they were paying respects to this walnut tree. And I think the tree started to wither, and some of the dark demonic forces started to leak out of the roots and leak out of the tree, and started to plague the minds of the people again in the area. And so in 1099, there was evil troubling that whole area. And this is the area that's very famous. And today it's the Piazza del Popolo in Italy. It's a very famous plaza. It has multiple churches there now, and we're going to be talking about the obelisk that's on that spot as well. But there's gates at this Piazza del Popolo. It's one of the most famous piazzas in the world, and so evil was troubling this whole area. It was basically leaking out of this walnut tree, and it was troubling the gates of the Piazza del Popolo and troubling the minds of the people in the area. So eventually, the people, of course, turned to the church for help. And this is when Pope Paschal II first comes into his reign as a pope. And this was the first thing he did. And I think he was drawn by these dark ones to do this. You know, he was Lord, because they were going in to inhabit him as well. But so Pope Paschal II, and you could do some digging and actually find information on this. This is not something I'm making up. This was passed down hereditary in my family, the truth behind it all. Pope Paschal II, in a dream, he saw in a vision. Basically, he said the Madonna, the Virgin Mary, appeared to him in a dream, literally handed him an axe in the dream, and said that he has to go chop down that walnut tree and tear it down by its roots, and underneath it he'll find Emperor Nero's bones, and he has to get rid of those bones and throw them in the Tiber River and build a church on that spot or whatever, right? So in reality, the tree was what was holding that evil locked within the ground and within there and within that spot, because that spot is actually on ley lines that cross connect, and it's a high energy grid right there. It's on the ley lines, right? That energy and that walnut tree. There's a reason why they put those bones there, and nobody even believed that Emperor Nero would even be buried underneath there as well. They thought it was just a myth. But Pope Paschal II said that the emperor's bones were underneath there, that he has to cut down that tree because the Virgin Mary told him. So the next day, he gets a friggin' procession of cardinals, and they march to this walnut tree, Brent, and they say that as soon as the chips, he took an axe to the trunk, and chips started to fly off the tree, that they felt vibrational energies come off the root into the air, and they felt this evil just get released. And at that point, Pope Paschal II took on a supernatural transformation and took on that dark energy into him. And he even said that he had some sort of supernatural transformation in some of his writings, and he took that back to the church with him. And the crazy thing is that they ended up in time putting an ancient Egyptian obelisk right on that spot where the walnut tree was, and it stands there today in the Piazza del Popolo. Now, it's made of red granite. Red granite is a high quantity of quartz, and it's a conductor of electricity. It can broadcast transmissions, spiritual transmissions. It could tap into the ley lines. So they're literally put an ancient Egyptian obelisk from and this was an obelisk that originally was made in the 13th century BC for the sun god Ra in Heliopolis, and then was taken over and used for the demon god Set, and then it was taken to Italy from Egypt. And for a long time, it was buried underneath the ground until they found it again in the 1500s and put it right on that spot where the walnut tree was in the Piazza del Popolo, where Emperor Nero's bones were. When Pope Paschal II took the bones out of the ground, he did an exorcism on the spot and threw the bones in the river. And I think at that moment is when he took on that dark energy and unleashed it from that spot, from that dark energy, from the ground, from that ley line that it was, and everything. It released it. And now they're broadcasting that transmission with an obelisk into the atmosphere, into other spiritual places, and into the minds of humanity. And they're using that ancient red granite of the obelisk, and it's really intense when you think about it. And the thing is, this is not a one-off. They did the same thing in Benevento, Italy, but it was years before. In 662 AD, they did this in Benevento, Italy, at one of the most famous walnut trees in the world. Walnut trees and a lot of ancient trees are connected to prophecy and connected to other dimensions. You know, you can access other dimensions through the hollow of a tree, through the hollow of ancient trees. And this is how, you know, fae entities and fae creatures and gnomes and elves get into our physical realm sometimes. They do it through the hollow of trees. I literally have had my own encounters and proof of it through pictures and different things that I've caught on my Patreon and stuff of Fey encounters that I've had myself through the hollow of a tree and through ancient trees. They've this there's other this is not a one-off. Like I said, they did this in Benevento, Italy, as well, where the most famous walnut tree was in all of Europe. And there was this Barbatos. He was like the town priest, and there was a famous walnut tree that supposedly, just like in the Piazza del Popolo, and this was years before, and way down the coast from the Piazza del Popolo. This is in Benevento, and they actually make a Strega liqueur there as well. It's and they have the walnut tree right on the bottle with witches dancing around it. It's part of the lore of the place. So this walnut tree supposedly was a walnut tree of ancient serpents that would appear on the branches, and that they would give prophecy to people, and there would be rituals done at this walnut tree. All from people all over from Italy would come, and they would worship this tree. And now this guy Barbatos was the town prophet and priest. When he came into office in Benevento, the first thing he did was go and cut down this walnut tree that they were all worshiping. And there's supposedly like flying horses that would appear at this tree, all sorts of weird things that would happen at this tree. And he basically made like a church pew out of the walnut tree and melted a golden viper that the town was worshiping as well, and made a chalice out of it. And interesting enough that he took on a supernatural transformation, they said, when they took this walnut tree down as well. And they put the Temple of Isis obelisk on that spot as well, and they have churches on that spot as well. So that's not a one-off. They did it there as well. And with these obelisks, what they do is they put a cross on top of it and the Fey star underneath the cross. So they like consecrate it to the Catholicism. Then they engrave it again with their own engravings. And they're literally broadcasting dark energy from these obelisks still to this day. It's really intense stuff.
That really is. And of course, binding spirits into a grave has been done with trees since time immemorial. I mean, that's a very, very old custom. So that's really cool that you're referencing that. It's just something that I learned about years ago. And I thought, wow, what an interesting concept. And the same thing is always held true. Don't ever cut the tree down. And to hear that they were, of course, manipulated into doing that is pretty bizarre. Wow.
Yeah, it's really intense. I mean, and it even goes back to what I was talking about before with the Lutz, the almond tree. The Lutz bone and the Lutz meaning almond tree. I mean, if you go into the Bible, this is how Jacob's ladder happened. Jacob accessed it through the hollow of an almond tree. This is how he had that Jacob's ladder, where he saw the angels coming and going from heaven and hell, and it was at the city of Lutz, the Lutz. He accessed this higher dimensional zone called the Lutz, the city of Lutz, and this is called the almond tree. He did this through the almond tree, and Jacob in the Bible made his staffs from his magical staffs from the almond tree. Certain trees are literally the remnants of Lemuria and the ancients, like the red oaks, the redwoods, I mean, and the cedars of Lebanon, and certain ancient trees of like this. They have the knowledge of ancient Lemuria and ancient past races that we had, and this is true spiritual knowledge of some of the first people that walked this physical plane in this physical realm. And this is where some of the true knowledge is that we have to get back to in order for us to find our true mission and find a way out of this physical realm.
Wow. It's so intense. It's so intense.
Yeah, it's really intense. I mean, let me see how it's crazy because I've been doing a research on these obelisks and writing a book on this spiritual technology, and a lot of it has to do with red granite. You've seen the rock you asked me a few days ago about that megalithic rock that I've researched and I visited, that's over here in New York, and that's made out of rose red granite as well.
Wow.
It's basically I call it the Sphinx of New York, and it's basically like 60 tons of red granite, rose granite, and there's not any granite anywhere near that area. All right, just like there's certain obelisks, ancient obelisks in Lebanon, in Byblos, which means Bible. So this is an ancient area. There's red granite obelisks that used to have gold caps on top in ancient Byblos of Lebanon, and there is not any granite from that area. So this is most likely brought from Aswan, or I think it was called in Egypt, a quarry in Egypt, brought all the way 1,000 miles to Lebanon. And just like that, we have that in New York, right here in North Salem, New York. We have a 60-ton rose granite cat-like humanoid head that is made out of rose granite that's balancing, barely touching smaller little stones on the ground. You can find that at my website, themysticalspiral.com/Ra's Music and the Felines. It's right on there, and they call this the balancing rock. Geologists, Rex, Brent, they're actually geologists try to say that this is some sort of glacial erratic. They do call it a dolmen, so they do now basically say that it was constructed for worship of some sort. They say because they're calling it a dolmen, but they tried to first say this is a glacial erratic, like the ice age just propped this skull-like huge stone on top of four other stones, just balancing like that, barely even touching the corners of the smaller stones. And it looks just like a cat head or a feline's head almost, and it has like an Egyptian or Etruscan headdress on it.
And when you were streaming from there, your phone kept dying, just constantly. Boom.
You know, I did a reading on the spot, and other people have felt it as well. Now, we all have a cognitive blueprint in our brains. You know, we don't need to have a monument on the ley line to find out. Dowsers can find it very easily. I can find spots very easily. There's ley lines in an energy grid beneath us, and most of it goes hand in hand with the running water beneath the ground as well. So this huge, amazing piece of rose granite is right on top of a ley line where the spots crisscross, and it's right on top of a place that has underground water, and it's literally like in a multi-dimensional anchor of energy that's put there as like an anchor to like balance the energy of that area. It was put on that spot for a reason, and I do feel there's ancient DNA within that structure that's from a past feline race that's waiting to emerge again on our planet. I do feel it's like a storage facility. Rocks are storage facilities. They store ancient information there, just like asteroids and meteors. They bring codes and formulas into our realm, and you can program a rock with ancient information. It's like a database, and the quartz crystal within the red granite is like memory chips. And you know, it's holding ancient information with there, and it's known. That spot is known. That rock and many other red granite and other granite rocks that have quartz in it are known to have plasmic orbs around it, and supernatural and paranormal activity around it. And this rock is one of those stones. Immediately when I went there, I felt the energy of it, and I actually put a crystal skull that I have underneath it in this little altar that's on one of the rocks beneath it, and cool. I laid underneath it as well. You know,
that must have been a little intense.
But the thing is, Brent, that this is not just a one-off as well, that they have another similar stone that they actually call the cat stone in the Council Rock Mountains. And this is really intense. And, you know, these are really treasures of North America and New England. And the one in North Salem is truly one, and I'm not underestimating it by saying this. Overestimating it by saying this. It's truly one of the great wonders of North America is that stone. You know, and it's basically a cat head dolmen. And they have another cat stone in the Council Rock Mountains that almost looks exactly like it. It almost looks like an ape head or a cat head mixed, you know, and it has that back, that the same back as the other stone. And it's an alignment that they have with other stones in the Council Rock Mountains. And people don't realize it, but I don't know if you're aware of it, but pre-Columbus, and Columbus is actually connected to my family line as well. My mother's maiden name was Columbo, which means white dove, and that's his actual name, Cristoforo Columbo.
Okay.
But it goes way back in my family. But these areas, and even where I live now, it's a very haunted area on the Hudson River where I live in New York. This is a very ancient area, but all through here, and even going more upstate towards the Catskill Mountains, because I'm more towards New York City. Um, if you go up to the Catskill Mountains, these are places where the Phoenicians have been, the Knights Templars once were, the Norse and the Vikings once were. This is not just Native American area. This has been an area pre-Ice Age that was sacred. So these grounds are very sacred and very ancient, and there are spirits and different energies that are spiraling throughout the atmosphere all around us.
Wow.
So it's really intense.
It really is. And it's also intense that we're already at our last break. Can you believe it?
Wow, man, I've been talking my ass off, right?
You're doing great, though, man. It's been really incredibly interesting.
Shut me up anytime you
No,
want
that's-
to ask questions or
I-
talk or whatever.
I brought you here to share, brother, and you're doing just that. So you're doing your job. Thank you so much. But we'll be back right after this break to continue our conversation with Ra Castaldo here on the portal. Don't go away, everybody. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Last half hour of our journey here tonight is already upon us. It's really flown by. Been an exceptional conversation with amazing information. I'm pretty sure that Ra's going to forget more about the paranormal than I'm ever going to know. At least a lot of the background of it. That's quite an impressive run, brother. I mean, the way you're just spouting. You and Duke. Duke is another guy. He's a Bigfoot guy from World Bigfoot Radio, and he's also a mod in our channel. His name's Brian Sullivan, and he can rattle off facts like that about the cryptids and Bigfoot, and even about a lot of paranormal stuff. But the way that you're just boom, 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 it's like, wow, it's like a roller coaster ride.
It's my life. It's my life. It's been my whole life. It's everything. Even my wife will tell you. She gets crazy because, like, even when I go into the bathroom, I bring like 3 books with me. I'm referencing things. I'm looking up different things.
Mm-hmm.
I have books all around me because I'm constantly searching for more answers and connections and explanations for things that I've been through and my ancestry have been through.
Uh-huh.
And for me to be prepared to face the certain elements that we're facing on our planet now, I have to know what I'm dealing with, and so I'm constantly digging for more answers. And I'm the more when I research a topic, I get knowledge that I'm not reading. It's coming through me from my ancestral realms and from my higher self, if you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my heritage, Brent, is being able to tap into a never-ending data bank of ancestral knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
So when you can tap into these ancient stories. When is your birthday, if you don't mind?
May 1st.
Oh, May. Wow. So. Yeah, so you got a very powerful birthday as well. So that's very interesting. So, like I could basically see people's auric fields and could see their timelines differently throughout things. So just when you have like a May 1st birthday too, and the way your spiritual sun rises within you, I'm sure like around 20 years old, you had a big change. This probably is going to go until you're probably about 50 years old. Again, you're going to have to go through another big change in your 50 that's going to make you progress as well. It's going to be your Saturn's return. So at 20 years old, so you probably felt like a huge, overwhelming urge to like find more answers and express yourself more, and you have to wanted to relate more to your environment and things like that. You needed this, and I think that you were very sensitive in your youth and very sociable too. And then like at 20 you went through like a change where you had to express your ideas even more and relate yourself more to your environment. I could feel. So that's like sort of like your journey that you're gonna go through is like, I could see certain energies. So probably like around 20 years old, you had a big change, right?
It was more like 15, but I think was the hugest change in the course of my life. But yeah, in the 15 to 20 years, I went through quite a period of changes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess everybody can say that around that age because it's sort of like puberty. But some people go through it at 5-6 years old, a big change. You know. And
I mean, I had like my life went onto its head when I was 15, and it was an incredibly tumultuous journey for me for a number of years.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, what made you everybody? Because we're talking about me a lot. I mean, I've been talking for an hour and a half, so I'm interested to know, because most times when people get into the spiritual or paranormal, it's because they've either had their own experiences or there's something that makes you go down this route. What makes you report on this stuff and pursue it? What is them? Did you have experiences of your own, or what makes you?
Yeah, I've had several actually. I lived in a haunted house for years, and many. It seems like the paranormal follows me, to be honest with you, Ra. I mean, I'll tell you, the reason that I got into the paranormal initially was because
the name Cooper is coming to me as well. Is that associated with you in some way?
No, not really. I don't think so. I don't recognize that name anyway. But for me, the paranormal was the last vestige of magic that still existed in the world, and I love a world with magic and mystery, and that there's still things to discover and find, and that the hubris of man is not so absolute, that we still have so much to learn, and we've forgotten so much. So it's kind of the rediscovery of our source.
Yeah.
Through me, to me, the paranormal is definitely a rediscovery of our source and getting back to our spiritual core. The things our ancestors did all the time, we now have to hunt for. We have to
Now
look.
you're sounding like me.
Exactly, because and that's what I've noticed throughout the course of this journey tonight is that you've said so many things about your experiences. Now, I don't know that I've ever had an NDE, but maybe I have. But I also sometimes when I open my mouth, things just come out, and I know they come from some source well outside of me, and it comes and it's so some people may call that channeling, some may call it the Akashic record, some may whatever the terms we give it. I've been connected to this my whole life, and I do have spiritual things following me all the time. Lived in very haunted houses. I've seen a UFO. When I was 15, I also had a Bigfoot behind me. That wasn't the event I was talking about, but maybe I was 14 at that time. But it growled at me and scared the hell out of me, and I thought I was going to die, and it was like, what the hell was that? And so it's like my whole life has been primed for this, for doing this. Because I've always just naturally been drawn to anything about spirits, about magic, mystery, intrigue, and I love the fact that we don't know everything. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of my journey in a real basic nutshell. But
What's interesting too is when you were talking, even though it might not be in your DNA, I'm not sure if it is or not. I do feel you have a strong Native American connection, even maybe like to Chaco Canyon or New Mexico or that area.
Okay.
I feel like a strong Native American connection that you have.
I really resonate with the Native American philosophies a lot. I find that I think they had it right, and perhaps it's a past life. I've been told that I was a Native American chief, a very famous one before.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You've been told that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
I've been getting things coming to me. When you were talking, not all show. I'm not going to say it's all. So not until you started sharing some personal things,
Mm-hmm.
I started getting some imagery, and I think it might be connected to the Mexico area or Chaco Canyon area, or I think that's what it's called, that area. But it's very, you were very important, someone very important in some sort of Native American culture. I could see a lot of imagery with that, and I could feel a certain sense of like you're distinguished as well. So like a pile of stones too, like almost like a mound, but like a pile of stones that's associated with you. I don't know if that's somewhere where you were buried or something like that, but I could definitely draw it for you.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I'm very connected to Native Americans as well. The same year I had my near-death experience, my family decided to go to Disney from New York in Florida, and my dad got us a room at the Hilton hotel room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is right after I had my near-death experience. So like I think I had activated something in me, or like I was really close to spirit still, because we went out all day long at the beach. We went to Disney. I think the day before, or we went to Epcot Center the day before, but to make the long story short, we went there to Epcot Center or Disney, but there was this new attraction called Figment. It was like a purple dinosaur. Figment of your imagination. You ever see that purple dinosaur from Disney back in the day? It was like a purple doll.
Yeah.
It was a dinosaur.
I
Had a yellow vest.
Yep. I remember that.
Figment, right? So
Yep.
I went to the Figment ride or the attraction, and I got this big stuffed animal of Figment, and I had it, and it was I left it on the bed as we went to the beach, and I left it on the hotel bed. So we went to the beach all day. It was the first time I ever boogie board, like when you lay down on the board and ride the waves.
Uh-huh.
And I was doing that all day, and I was beat up by the waves, Brent. Like I so tired, like I couldn't even move my arms and legs. I was so tired. I barely made it to the hotel room. I was like dragged there. My eyes were all. I looked like I was on drugs, even though I was 9 years old. My eyes were all draggy. There's photos of me with my eyes all droopy, like I was really, really bad. So I went to the hotel room. My dad was downstairs getting reservations or something for dinner. I was gonna go shower and take a little nap, and then we were gonna go get dinner. So my mom brought me to the hotel room, and she brought me back to the room,
and she was gonna go leave and get ice or to go leave the room for a second, but she was gonna go put me in and walked me to bed because I was like really tired. I was like 9 years old, something like that. So, um, she brought me to the hotel room bed. I remember picking up the Figment doll, and I remember being so exhausted because I remember that day. It was like so, so exciting for me to boogie board and everything. And I remember being so exhausted, and I remember gripping the Figment doll and my mom leaving. And I remember when I went to lay on the bed, and I don't remember ever hitting the bed. It's like I fell into it and I didn't feel my body anymore. And the next thing I knew, I wasn't holding the doll anymore. Like I was drifting up towards the ceiling, and I was basically like looking down at my body. I like left my body, and I was going up towards the ceiling. And I saw another, like a Native American girl floating next to me for a little while as well. Like she was almost like she wanted to touch my hands. But then I remember hearing like a Native American chant, but it was almost like a recording backwards, like hey, zip, 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 hey, something like that, like weird. Like it was like a backwards recording. And I wasn't alone in that room, even though I was alone in the physical. My spirit was not alone, because I remember looking down on my body, or my bed, my body in the bed. And there was all of these robed, like dark purpled robed beings, and they had like a Komodo dragon snout coming out of their hood, almost like walking Jim Henson type creatures, like big reptile type creatures. And I only saw their snouts coming out. They were like a Komodo dragon type face, and they were chanting like a Native American chant. And I felt like, almost like there was candles lit, but I didn't see any candles. There was like a weird glow around my body. And then it must have been my mother coming back into the room with the door. I remember hearing the sound of the door even, and then get sucked back in my body, like I got slammed back in it. And I remember I was wide awake now, and I remember trying to explain it to my mother. And she was like, "Oh, you had a crazy dream." I was telling her that there was figments in the room. There was dinosaurs in the room. The figments that were in, and I was sleeping with him. I was clutching him while I was telling her still, holding it in my arm. I was trying to tell her that Figment was visiting me in the room, and he was all around me. There was all these figments, and she was like, "Oh, you're just having a crazy dream because you were so tired." But years later, and it kind of what they have in the chat room at TFR right now is almost like what I saw, like their face. It's almost like that, and. Years later, I find out about reptilians and the India and Hindu. They have the Naga, all of these sort of creatures that exist in the spiritual realm, and sometimes can actually appear in our physical realm of matter as well. And I do think that they're connected to the Nephilim and those type of entities as well. That there's hybrid races, on our planet and in our different realities, but somehow they were doing some sort of ritual around my body. Or something. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it's pretty intense.
That's way intense. That's incredible. So you were astrally projecting. At
Yeah,
that age.
and there was some sort of Native American ritual. Somehow those, I feel, of course my interpretation could be wrong, but I feel that they were sort of connected to the Native Americans, because I heard that Native American chanting. I saw like a Native American girl there. For a while, I thought she was my spirit guide. I think it's actually me in another reality, from another timeline. I really think that was part of who I am, because I've had other experiences with this Native American girl in my dreams. For a while, I thought she was some sort of spirit guide, but I actually think it's part of me. It's part of who I am on another timeline, another reality.
Right. Well, that's incredible, though. I mean, you've had an amazing journey, and it doesn't even sound like you've scratched your surface, so to speak. Like there's so much more for you to get done, and so much, like that's the vibe I'm getting, is that now that you've committed to it, now is when it really starts for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I think all those years that a lot of these experiences were happening, because I didn't even tell you anything about in my, we're only up to like my 10 years old right now at that story. So we didn't even talk about like me going into California or anything like that, where all the real hardcore stuff happened, and me even having encounters with the Navy and the police, and being locked up, and a lot of things that happened to me, because of some of the experiences I've had, and almost being, well, I was taken and abducted by, I feel the military that was working with certain cults of Satan and certain Satanism cults. That's where they were literally after me, and I think that's what some of these rituals were connected to. These dark forces that have been after my lineage, and information that gets imprinted in your blood through certain things that you activate. And I think anytime I've ever had a real sort of quote unquote paranormal experience afterwards, there were other forces that were interested in me. Like, I feel they were interested in what was in my blood, what was in what I activated within me. So uh, I didn't put the pieces of together at first, but anytime I've ever had some sort of um, encounter, there was always some sort of activity afterwards that followed. Like, even recently, um, I've done some certain pulling evils out of people and help clear some things, and then all of a sudden I'm getting contacted by the Archdiocese of New York, and certain people are following me, and certain things happen. So I'm not paranoid at all. I'm not I don't consider myself like a targeted individual or anything like that.
Sure.
I actually teach a shamanism class. I do readings on people,
Right.
so I'm not paranoid at all. I'm fearless when it comes to stuff like that. But
Sure.
I've been messed with before and attacked before for certain things that I've been through.
Now, we got about 9 minutes left, and I would just love for you, if you could, encapsulate just a few good ideas, good practices people can use to keep themselves spiritually safe. Just some general ideas of things that people can use to keep themselves in a good spiritual place without, because many of our listeners are also on the same journey, and I'm sure they could use the tips.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, you got to start small. And I do teach a shamanism class. There's no crash course in spirituality or shamanism or being psychic. It's a life process.
Mm-hmm.
But healers don't actually heal anybody. They show people how they can heal themselves, how people actually can find a way to heal yourselves. So that's what I do. I show people how to help heal themselves. Starting just simple. If we call it, some people call it grounding. That's one of some of the most basic things that people should do is to ground yourself and connect back to the earth and get rid of some of the astral debris and the negative chatter and the bad energies that we pick up. So if you just every day, especially when you wake up in the morning, because you're very susceptible to pick up astral debris in dream time and negative thought forms in dream time as well. So in the morning when you wake up, go outside on the earth, sit on the grass in meditation pose. Imagine your arms are like tubes, like they're hollow, and put your palms on the grass and take deep breaths and push deep down onto the grass, or imagine your arms being hollow and all the bad energy is flowing out of your hollow tubes of arms deep down into the grass. Push it down, get rid of it. Grounding techniques like that will make you lighter, will get rid of your energy. And if you see yourself as a bioenergetic system, your whole body is like a bioenergetic system, and you're a sacred enclosure. Your whole body is a sacred enclosure, and you have different brains. You don't just have your consciousness in your head. You have your consciousness within your pelvic region and within your heart. You can drop your energy, your consciousness within your spiritual body and see through your heart center and see the other energies you have around you, because we're like, the best way I could describe it, Brian, is like if you look at a candle flame, there's different layers to the flame. You have the white flame, the red flame, the black part, the blue part of the flame. All these different layers to the flame. We are like that as well. We have our physical bodies, we have our spiritual body, our aura, our astral, and our soul. All of this, keeps enclosed within our soul. We have these different layers around us. So around our physical body, we have energetic layers of who we are, unseen layers to most people, that most people don't see those other layers of who we are. But those other layers can tap into in a limitless amount of energy around us. So it's up to us to connect to that limitless spiritual energy and channel it in a positive way and release that as healing energy to others. Like I said at the beginning of the show, if you tap in, if you're accumulating energy in your life and accumulating knowledge in your life, and you're picking up energy and debris and astral energy from people, and you're going through dream time and picking up things, you're picking up insecurities, you're picking up arguments. If you don't release that energy in some sort of positive way, it will eventually turn to schizophrenia. It'll eventually split your personality, and it starts to delete your emotions and numb you, and then people end up becoming like pedophiles and schizophrenics, and they're looking after, like, they want to feel purity again, they want to be like a child again, so they go after children, and they become like distorted. They're like, it's a snowball of evil that happens when you don't release that negative energy that you accumulate. So I would tell everybody to, learn how to silence your mind again. Learn how to experience nature and tap into the elemental forces again, and get rid of that negative chatter. That's the best, way to start.
Good. Yeah, and that's brilliant. I mean, that's just perfect. I think a lot of times that's what most people just need, is just to know where to start, because in this day and age, especially in the terms of spirituality, there's so many modalities out there. There's so many ideas. There's so many schools of thoughts, and when you boil them all down, they're all saying basically the same thing. Get back in touch with yourself. Find you
Yeah.
in all of this, because we've lost it. Our lives are traveling a million miles an hour. We're multitasking. We're being asked to do more with less all the time.
The Earth's heartbeat is being sped up literally through certain technologies that's being used on our planet. Some call it the Schumann resonance. Like, literally, the Earth is moving faster, even though it's the same seconds and minutes and hours. We're actually being sped up, and the Earth is being sped up. It's the heartbeat of Earth, if you want to say, is beating faster. So we're being accelerated. Technology is being accelerated, and our time is being accelerated. And if we don't look out and we don't find a way to bring us to a higher dimensional state where we don't need time anymore, where time doesn't exist anymore, then eventually we're going to be pulled to the center of a black hole, to the singularity. We're going to lose our existence and who we are. We'll be uploaded into this future mind of a future computer mind. And when the capacity of the Earth is reached, we're going to be brought to a certain singularity. And I think that's what's happening right now, is the Earth is expanding, and things are all these manifestations are happening, and these thought forms are being manifested, and creations are manifesting, and all of this theories and this and that. Every thought people have generates some sort of thought form or feeling or energy. And the amount of things that have been generated from in our world is chaotic. And so we're facing truly a crazy time right now, that if we don't connect to each other again and learn how to connect to each other and align ourselves again, we're in for some bad times. I mean, I feel that in a few months from now, even, that there's going to be some big changes coming, and that people need to understand that this materialism, this virus, this technology that we're interacting with, it's not the way of the future. That we're going to have to make a decision sooner or later and change this planet before it changes us.
Amen, brother. We got a couple minutes left. Just if you would please remind everybody how to stay in touch with what you're doing, brother, because I think a lot of us could learn a whole bunch from you.
Yeah, so if you want to contact me, my email address is moontribe712@hotmail.com. You can find that at my website, which is themysticalspiral.com. No www, just themysticalspiral.com. And patreon.com/themysticalspiral. I put mind-blowing daily information on there. Depending on the platform, I send people charms in the mail or crystals and things like that. I do psychic readings for people. I do spiritual readings for people, timeline readings for people. I can do clearings, wedding ceremonies, last rites, all sorts of things. That I'm a licensed reverend, in fact. So I've been, I might look young and sound young, but I'm 41 years old, and I've been doing spiritual work for the last 30 years of my life, and spiritual battles. So I have a lot of knowledge to share with you guys. So I hope that at the very least that you come check me out and do your own research. And you know, I don't want to come across like I have any answers or I have all the answers or anything, because the more I learn to realize how much I don't know and how much there is to know out there. But I have caught a glimpse of the spiritual realms and the other world. And if you look beyond your consciousness and look, and you can see the other world around you, the unseen worlds around you. And that's what I would like everybody to get inspired to do, is find their spiritual selves again. Thanks for inviting me, Brent. I really appreciate it.
Really appreciate you coming on, brother. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to TFR iHeart, tune in to TalkStream Live. Stick around for Paisley Wild coming up, The Spaces Between. And she's also probably streaming live on her YouTube channel. And that's The Spaces Between as well. All right, guys, I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh when you can. Good night, everybody.
Woo!